Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and in this episode I am going to finish up attaching the front of this car. It is going to get done. Okay guys, so one of the big suggestions that kept coming up after my welding on this front last episode was that I was having issues with the holes, and a lot of people were saying to use a piece of copper, or I've actually got this piece of brass rod that I've used for many years for sticking behind holes when you're welding them up. That works fine, and this works fine with a MIG welder, but with the TIG welder, particularly when you're filling holes, you need 3 hands to hold it. So I have actually gone out and finally ordered. You can get sort of magnetic arms that will go in, so you can clip it in with a magnet and adjust where the pad, the copper or brass pad, sits against the panel, so you can hold it underneath the hole. And then obviously when you've got brass or copper underneath the hole, this will not be welded to it with the mild steel. It won't stick, so you can hold that underneath. It acts as a bit of a heat sink, but it also gives it a backing so that it'll just sort of weld onto the edges of the metal and not keep blasting through the hole, and it sort of helps quite a bit. So they are quite handy. And the magnetic thing is something that I've been looking to get for quite a while, but I haven't for now. But yes, with TIG welding, I don't have 3 hands. So anyway, that's that covered. But I thought a lot of you might be interested to see a little bit of progress on the engine. Okay, so as you can see here, I finally actually have the adapter plate sitting on the engine, and I have a flywheel in place. Now, basically, what I had to do to get to this stage, I had to get a couple of dowels made up, because there's a couple of dowels to join up the Ferrari engine to the adapter plate, and then there's the Subaru dowels that connect the gearbox to the adapter plate on the other side. The flywheel I've got, I might have shown you in the past, this is actually a Subaru BRZ factory flywheel that I've actually modified to do the job here. So as I discussed a while ago, what I've actually done, and some of you might think it is a bit of an issue, but I am quite comfortable with it, is the PCD of the Ferrari, I think from memory, is 36 millimeters, and the PCD of the Subaru BRZ is 34 millimeters. So there's a 2 millimeter difference. So basically what I took it into the local machine shop and got them to machine the holes a little bit tighter. I think the Ferrari is 34 and the Subaru is BRZ. So the Ferrari is tighter than the Subaru. So I got them to machine the holes a little bit tight, a little bit sort of in towards the center, because that is not what actually centers it. Basically what I got done then on the back is there is a bearing that sits in the end of the crank on the Ferrari, and what I've done is I've got the back of the flywheel machined out to the size of the bearing so that it sits nicely on, and it's located on the bearing, which is located in the center of the crank. So now the flywheel is perfectly centrally located, and that way making the holes a little bit longer. And to be honest, some of them you can barely even see any machining. It's such a tiny amount, it's a millimeter. So I've gone through and got that all done. There's one hole that actually still needs to be machined a little bit further. It doesn't quite fit up, but the flywheel bolts on, the adapter plate now bolts on, and the gearbox fits over the top of the lot. I'll just demonstrate now. All right, like a bit of messing around, because obviously I've got no bolts in it. It's all just sitting there just on the dowels, but it all fits in nicely. All the clearances look fantastic, so I am very happy. I still need to get some shorter studs to come out of the Ferrari block, because they interfere with some of the variations. So there's one that interferes with where the starter motor goes on the gearbox side. So there's a couple of little things that need to be adjusted, but we're getting very close. I have a clutch ready to go on, so as soon as I get that all done, I can sort of bolt this all up together, get the clutch in and everything set up, and it should be able to work as a Subaru clutch, Subaru slave cylinders, and the rest of it is all pretty straightforward. So that is a big win. Alright, so last week you saw me weld on the sides of the nose cone, but I still have to go in and tackle the center. So this here is still not actually welded together. So it's going along and welding this all down and making it look nice and neat and tidy. Okay, so that edge is not looking too bad now. Still a little bit of grinding to do and tidying up, but I will get there. I just thought I'd mention, I was mentioning at the start of the video, this little contraption that I ordered. It's arrived already, and this is it. So I'll put a link in the description to this thing, but basically it's a magnet here with a copper head on it, so you can sort of sit it underneath your panel, adjust the, over a hole, put that over the hole, magnet down and adjust it so that it's holding it nice and flat on the spot so you can weld from the other side. Nice, easy third hand, so then I can actually TIG weld up some holes. So I've already used it a couple of times actually on some of these bits and it works great. So handy little bit of gear. So before I go too much further, the next thing to tackle is putting the bonnet on and getting it all lined up around the front here. So at the moment, this section can sort of be adjusted and needs to be adjusted to get it to sort of all match in with the bonnet. So that's my next little thing to tackle. Okay, so I've spent a fair bit of time now getting this all looking pretty good. This panel gap is a little bit tight along here, but there's a bit of adjustment I can still put in there. But the gaps around the side, there's still work to be done, but it's getting pretty good. So we're getting pretty close to having that front end sorted. So I think the next thing I'm going to tackle is coming down to these corners, and I need to make up some pieces that are going to fit in and fill in those spots, and they're going to be fun. All right, so as you saw, I just got a little piece of scrap, cut it very, very roughly to shape, and I bent a fold in it. I want to taper off the edge that's under there, because basically the nose cone of the car has it comes around to a flat edge, whereas the wheel arches come down and they've got like a little 90-degree lip. So I want to transition from the lip to the flat edge, and that's why this sort of taper is here, and I'll trim that off when I get it in the car. I used a piece of cardboard to make a template of the curve of the outside of sort of the side-on curve that I need, but that little panel curves in two directions. So I've got this curve reasonably good, but I need to get this curve in it as well. And to do that, what I'm going to try is something I've seen but I haven't actually done, which is actually stretching the metal by, I'm going to panel beat it over the top of this this dolly that I put into the vise. So I'm just going to basically, by hammering in the center, it's going to be stretching the metal thinner and thinner, and hopefully, because the center's going to be bigger, it's going to give it that sort of crown, sort of double curve that I'm looking for. So I'm going to give it a go and see if I can actually get it to match what is on the car. Okay, so after a lot of beating on that dolly, I've got this piece, and you can see it's got this sort of, it's got a curving going this way, but also curving going this way. So it's exactly what I wanted. It took a little bit of time to get that shape right, but now I have a nice tight fit onto the panel here, which is exactly what I want. And I'm going to try a new method of patching this in that I just saw this week. It's actually from a guy, Fitzy's Fabrications, a YouTube video he put up, and I saw it and I was like, that's fantastic. So I really like this method. I'm going to give it a go now and see how it works on this. This is a little bit more complicated than the complicated shape than the piece he put in, because it was a nice flat piece, which was good for demonstration. We'll see how it goes on something a little bit more complicated, but I really like it. And yeah, thanks, Fitzy. So I'm sure many of you are looking there and thinking the same thing I did when I watched the video first, was lap welding is a terrible way of doing a repair, because basically you've got the old piece of metal underneath and new piece of metal over the top. That gap is a place where moisture and stuff can get in, and it just causes rust and stuff later on. No, I'm going to be butt welding this, and the simple technique, which is an absolute revelation, that Fitzy covered, was basically instead of me now going through and cutting around the weld at a 90-degree angle to the patch, I come in at a 45-degree angle and cut a 45-degree angle, so that, and I do a little patch at a time, so that when I cut the first bit, I'll cut through my welds and through the panel underneath at a 45, and that panel will then be able to drop in level with the panel underneath, and those two 45-degree bends will join up nicely, and you'll get this really nice flat, even join the whole way along. It's quite an easy way to get the patch on, get it all perfect, and get it sitting in the right spot. I really like it, so I'll go through it now, and you'll be able to see exactly what I mean as I go. All right, so as you saw, basically what I did is, because I tack welded it over the top to start with, I started cutting the tacks in a little section. I'd cut it and the piece would drop down, so level with the outside, and then I'd tack it back together again, and then go through, cut tack, until I've gone all the way around. Now there is an extra piece on the inside that I need to now peel out, and that's the old part of the outside bit, but I have now a perfect patch, nice and easy to go around and weld it up. I love that method. It's a great method. I'll put a link to the video in the description, because it's I thought it was very clever. Simple and clever. I like it. So, all right, I'm going to go around now, and I'm going to just do a little bit of panel beating, and then I'm going to TIG weld this all up, and hopefully we can call that side done. We can get on to the other one. All right, one side down. Let's do the same again on the other side. Okay, so the front end is now fully welded onto the car. It's looking a lot better. I'm still going to do some work on getting the panel gaps perfect around the bonnet and things like that, but it's pretty reasonable now. There's still a bit of room to tweak it anyway. But that is all the time I have today, so I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, after the lackluster performance of the Alfa Romeo Tipo 33, Auto Delta revised its car and came out with the Alfa Romeo Tipo 33 Mark II. One of the biggest changes was a more aerodynamic bodywork in both long and short tail configurations. The short tail version was known as the Daytona, as that was where its debut race was. The car still used the large diameter H-frame tube chassis and the 270 horsepower 2-litre V8. The cars proved to be contenders at the 24 Hours of Daytona, but they were outmatched by the Porsche 907s with their larger 2.2 litre engines. However, they did end up coming 5th, 6th and 7th overall, and a class win. By the time the Targa Florio came around, Auto Delta had remodelled the new cars by relocating the oil coolers and giving them a new front scoop. Despite their considerable effort, they were again defeated by the Porsche 907s, but again won their class. At Le Mans, they fitted the long tail bodywork for a higher top speed and came 4th, 5th and 6th in a field against Porsches, Ferraris and GT40s.
All right, guys. Well, the front end is on, so that's good, and it's actually on properly because obviously last week it was sort of just loosely there. I still have to do the headlight buckets. There's still more little bits and pieces. It just takes time, but the engine is starting to look good. There's only a couple of bits and pieces, and then I can actually bolt that thing up for good. And yeah.
Do you mean we're going to have a car that we're going to be able to drive?
As if we have one of them.
Just like the Porsche's taken quite a long time.
Harry's still waiting. All right. Well, if you want to help us out, you know the drill. Like and subscribe. That does actually help. And being a patron, you can head down into the description, and there's links down there. You can watch the videos a day before everybody else.
Okay, everybody, we'll see you next time, and let us know what you think.
All right, see you guys.
Bye. It's like a, I don't know. By the time the boy had come around, probably the other had to relocate work. I'm thinking finger. By the time she was in a field against Porsches.